long exposure skies. Generally, I always like to use my own images for this, or to create an actual image in Photoshop. So I will show you both options on how I do this. So first of all, here I am in Lightroom, and I found a suitable image that I think the sky could work well on in terms of cutting it out and processing it in Photoshop to make it a usable sky to use on other images. So this sky is already a long exposure. I will do another example of a sky that isn't a long exposure, but for quickness I'll go over this one first. So this sky is quite good. It's obviously not a perfect long exposure, it's a bit underexposed, but generally I'll be changing it to black and white anyway and wanting to go dark. So in this instance it's a really good image to start with. It's got some dark areas, it's got some light areas, so this will look good when we blur it a wee bit more in Photoshop. So as I said, I'm in Lightroom just now. The first thing I would do is crop it and get rid of elements I don't want in the sky. So I'll get rid of the land. I don't want to crop it too much, so I'll leave that a bit in and I'll just get rid of that in Photoshop. So pretty much that's all I will do in Lightroom. And now I will take it into Photoshop just by hitting Command and E shortcut on the keyboard. And there we are. It's in Photoshop. This is one I've prepared earlier. So the first thing I would do is just always start off copying the layer, so I'm not working on the original one. In this image it doesn't matter too much, but it's just in case I make a mistake and I want to revert to how it was. So I've created a new layer. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this bit of tree here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, so the quickest way will be to use patch tool. You can see that up here on the left. Select the patch tool. Basically I'll just draw around quite close in. Doesn't have to be perfect as I said, and that'll do is and drag it to an area where there's not going to be a huge amount of contrast. See that the lines line up here, which will do nicely, I think. Yep. Command D to deselect that. That's good enough for what we're going to do. Generally I would make this a bit bigger as well. As it stands it's obviously quite letterbox. It's not going to be ideal. So what I would do is going to crop 16 by 9. You see up here, top left, 16 by 9 is a good sort of size. Drag it down a wee bit, something like that will do. And what I'll do, content aware, make sure that is ticked, and then just hit return. Right, there we go. Good enough for what we're going to do. So from there, don't want to do any more cleaning up, tidying up. As I say, we're going to blur it. So the first thing I would do is go into blur, motion blur. Okay, this box. I would always go all the way up to 2000 with it in terms of the distance. Basically this is the sort of stroke of the motion blur, if you like. If you go short you can see it's just sort of small lines of blur. It's doing the motion blur. You just drag it all the way. See, it gets rid of any discrepancies in the image. The bit where we use the patch tool, for example, completely gone now. You can change the orientation of the lines because it's a sky. You know, if you're doing a long exposure, the clouds can be moving towards you, they can be moving sideways, away from you. So you just pick whatever suit your image that you're going to be putting the sky on. You know, if you've got an architectural image is mainly where I would use these, and sometimes it's nice to even have it, you know, fanning out over the building, or, you know, go with the lines of the building and see which works best. Generally I would have it just slightly, you know, above zero. But you can see there at 18 degrees, that works well. Click OK. Now because this was already a long exposure, it actually looks quite good just with one run of the motion blur there. But what you can do is you can back up to filter, hit motion blur again, and it'll remember the settings you previously had. Click it, then you go, it's applied now 2 of the motion blurs, and you can see it's looking quite good, quite smooth already. Don't like this line here. Not really something you would get. So what you can do there is go up to filter, blur again, but this time Gaussian blur, and just apply the setting there. It's that works perfect. Just get rid of that harsh line. Okay. So usually I would change this to black and white. So if you go into, I'll create a new adjustment layer, black and white. Then it's looking a bit sort of flat at the moment, so I would go into again another adjustment layer, curves, mess about a bit in here until you get a kind of nice effect that you want. Okay, it's really entirely up to you how dark, how light or smooth you want it. Kind of. What you don't want is a sky that will distract from architecture, something like that. This can obviously be changed later on, but you can see we've went from something like that to something like that, ready just to be popped in to your image that you want to add this kind of sky onto. Another tip is if you want to save this, it's a good idea to save it and then you can add it into the sky replacement module. So what I would do if I created a sky, do file, save as, okay, I'll keep it as a TIFF file, and you can go and save it wherever you want to save it. So I've created like a Photoshop folder, and in here I've got sky replacements, and this one previously I called Black and W, Long Exposure Sky 01, and I've saved it in there. Okay, I'll just cancel it now because it already is in there, but I'm just showing you how to add it into the sky replacement onto a layer here rather than an adjustment layer. Then you go to Edit, Sky Replacement, and this will open up the sky replacement module. So obviously it's not going to do anything to this actual image, but remember I'm just showing you how to add it into the module. So you click on here, the down arrow, and you can see you can make your own group in here just by clicking on here, name your group, okay, put whatever name you want there. So as you can see I've made this group, I've called it My Skies, and in here I've got a couple I've done previously. So what you do is click on it, add, click on your group, then click add, and find the folder where you saved your TIFF file. So there you can see the one I saved earlier, Black and W, Long Exposure Sky 001. Click on it and open, and what that will do is it'll bring it in here, and then anytime you want to do a sky replacement, the ones you have created will be in here ready to go. What I'll do, I'll just quickly find another image and I'll apply one of these. I'll show you how to apply it. Okay, here we are, I'm back, got an image here which should work quite nicely for the sky replacement. So I'll just quickly show you how to do that. So up to Edit, Sky Replacement, and here we have the sky replacement module opened up. It's just working now. It's going to put this sky in, but we'll change that to the one we made earlier. So you can see it's a nice image to get the sky replacement. It's worked perfectly there. So you click on the down arrow here, you'd find your folder and click, there's the image we made earlier. Click that, and there we go. Not looking too good at the moment, but you can change that. So basically we need to change the shift edge. You can see there's a sort of halo of the original sky around the building there. So basically we want to shift the edge so that it goes right up to the building. So if we push that up, and then you can see, boom, it's looking good. maybe a wee bit over the edge, but you know, you can fine tune that till you get where you need to be. Fade edge. Again, you can see there, it's tightened right up to the building. If you do that, you can see there's a wee kind of, it's almost like a feathered edge to it. Don't really want that. You want it up close to the building. Get rid of the previous sky. Wee arrows here. You can move it. Now, if you don't want that dark band at the top, you can move it up a bit. You can see there's the bottom of the image. You can move it up till you get where it sits. Okay, scale, that will just basically zoom our sky replacement in. Foreground adjustments, don't need to worry about that with this image at the moment. Screen will obviously make it lighter, multiply or make it darker, whatever you prefer. That's just all the tools that are in there, but we can see a difference that made to the building there, much better. So you can mess a bit. If it's a coloured image, you can actually do a colour adjustment here. You can put a colour cast over your image so it blends in with the sky more. Really good for coloured images. This image doesn't matter. And you can see earlier about what I was saying about the lines, or the angle of the lines when you were applying the motion blur. For this particular building, you can see the lines suit the way they're going. You know, you've got the curves of the building, the lines are going that way. If we were to sort of flip it, for example, and then it's going the other way, and to me that doesn't work as well as that way, because this way they're going with the curve of the building, left to right. To me that works much better. So that is how you do the sky replacement. Again, when you apply it, it comes in its own group, and you've got all the different changes you made you can adjust. It's a really brilliant feature. So for the rest of the image, you'll just want the black and white, you know, and it's looking good already. I mean, that was basically straight a camera file to start with. I've obviously cropped it, must have been getting rid of some rubbish before I started working on it, but you can see it's even got dust spots on it still in the original image after I've done nothing to that other than crop it by the looks of it. You can see the difference that makes, just a new sky, black and white. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go through another sky processing treatment to get the long exposure on an image that wasn't already a long exposure, just to show you that method, okay? Okay, here's another image, this time not a long exposure sky, just a sort of normal sky. So again, similar to what I've done last time, quick crop, take out what we don't need in the image. Sorry if you can hear my mouse dragging about here on the table, I usually use a tablet. And maybe take it a bit there. Right, something like that. Okay, again, that's all I would do now in Lightroom, that is obviously. So then, Command E, take it into Photoshop. There we go. Again, duplicate the layer, Command J, and there's a wee bit of tree still there, so again, patch tool, drag around it, drag up. Actually missed a wee bit there, Russian. Okay, so that's that pretty clearly. Slightly different to what we've done the last time. What I'm going to do is use the crop tool and make it 6x4, and I'm going to drag it up until it fills the sort of area, but this time I'm not going to click content aware. I'm just going to crop it like that and leave the top bit blank, because what I don't want to, I want to keep the sort of the image that's there. I basically just want to stretch the image I've got to fit the frame. So I'm going to use this the rectangle marquee tool. If you grab that, click and drag until you select the whole image. Okay, you can see you get the marching ants there around the image, and then up to edit and content aware scale. Click on there, and then you'll see you get the wee grab points on it. So if you hold down shift, that lets you drag just in one direction. If you don't hold shift, the whole image will just rescale. But I don't want that, I just want to drag that up to fill, and you can see I've got the, hit return, I've got the same image filling the square there. Control D to do a deselection. So I'm going to blur it again. I'm going to blur it slightly different this time. Sometimes it's nice to have a long exposure effect where it's actually, you know, fanning out over the sky and creating some nice perspective to the sky. So this time I'm going to go to filter, blur and radial blur. So with radial blur, usually when you open it, this will be sitting here. You get the option to apply spin or zoom. So for this case we want zoom, and we don't want it coming like circular from the centre. We want it, drag that down, you know, so I mean it's creating that sort of fan shape, giving you perspective. You can trial and error with the amount. I'm going to try 75 to see how that looks. So you want it to be quite blurred. Okay, you can see the effect there, quite a nice effect. If you wanted it, again, more effective, do filter, just hit radial blur, it'll remember all the settings. And I'll just apply it again. Okay, so you can do that as many times as you want until you've got the actual effects you want. So that's fine there. Again, change it to black and white. Okay, that's quite light, so what you can do, you can mess about with the colour sliders in here. So obviously, there's mostly blue in this guy, so we can drag the blue. That'll just darken the blue areas, which will look a lot better. So just keep messing about with them until you get kind of effect you want. If that's not enough, you can go up and, you know, adjust brightness, make it darker, contrast, etc. Just until you get what you're after. Levels, curves, you know. Go and take it as far as little as you want, just till you get how you like it. And then, as I showed you previously, you can then add that in as a sky replacement if you wanted to replace the sky that way. I'm talking about the sky replacements. I'm assuming, you know, you're on the latest level of Photoshop. If not, you would obviously just use it in layers, you know, to add the sky as layers. If you're not sure how to do that, I can show you. So first of all, we'll flatten this image. Layer, flatten image. Right, okay, we'll work on this image again just because I've got it handy. So to replace the sky, if you don't have the sky replacement feature in your current version of Photoshop. So what we'll do, just select the quick selection tool, and this does a great job. If you select that, then up here you'll see select subject. If you try to click that first, usually that will do a very good job. Done a good enough job there, yep. So what we want to do is we want to select what we want to keep. So we want to select everything that's not this guy. So it's done a not too bad job there, but with the quick selection still selected, what we will do is just go round and select the rest. So you can see it's done quite a good job. A bit messy there. So if you just hold down option, it will deselect. Okay, Okay, so that's not too bad. So from there, then go into select and mask. So basically what we've done there is a quick selection tool, select subject, and a wee bit of finer selection. So in here, change that to red, that lets you see better. So anything that's not red is what you've got selected. Okay, I'm just going to grab my tablet for this, just makes it a bit easier. Okay, so anything that's not red is selected. So like say the lampposts here, we want to go in and just fine tune them. So zoom in, and then we select this wee tool here, make sure it's on add, increase that, and then just drag over the areas. This is the refine selection tool. So what it does is it's perfect for selecting like hair, wisps of hair. It does a great job at selecting things. You just drag it over the edges. You can see it's selecting them quite finely. So again, it'll work good on this for like the tree, the branches. If you need to use a brush, you select that one there. That's the brush tool, and you can just manually go in and draw over the areas where it's not selecting quite perfectly. I say it's better for sort of wispy areas, hair, tree branches it's ideal for. Like the lamppost, you can easily draw that in. Undo that. Just a wee tip for if you're like drawing a lamppost, because it's a straight line, if you just click on it, an area, then hold down shift and click somewhere else, it'll draw the straight line. So just drawing over these wee lights. Then I'm going to click here at the top of the lamppost, hold down shift, then click at the bottom of the lamppost here. See, you drew that straight line right down there. It's a wee bit wide, but for the purposes of this, it's absolutely fine, to be honest. Right, I'm not going to overdo it with all the selections here, but you get the idea. There's the flags on the other side. Okay, so you can try the refine tool. So make sure refine tool, make sure to add. You want it to add to the selection. Just draw over it. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly do these, okay, because you know it's just a quick example I'm showing you at the moment. Obviously, when you're doing it for real, just do it more accurately, spend more time doing it as well. Stop there, hold down shift, click here, and a wee bit skew. Right, I'm going to stop there. I know there's other things there, but I'm going to stop there just to bore you to death. Right, output selection. So you want to output this as selection. Okay, so okay. Then you can see we've got that selected. So with the marching ants going and it's selected, Command J, and what that does is it puts that selection on a new layer. So if we turn the bottom layer off, you can see the sky is now gone. Alright, so then what we would do, go back to the sky we just created, just drag that up onto the tab, bring it down, drop it in. There we go. So that's in there, we need to adjust it. So Command T, transform tool, and put that where we want it. then you drag that layer down below the layer with the buildings on it. So you can see in a few minutes we've got that selection looking quite good. So again, just to give the image a bit better, you go into the black and white, do what you need to do in there. But as you can see, easy peasy. Sky replacement. You just actually make it a bit bigger, there's a wee bit in the edge there, not covered. Okay, with transform, you can move it about, you can make it bigger, smaller, you know, whatever suits. So you can do that with that sky, with the sky we've done last time. If we zoom in, you can see here just how good a job that quick selection and then select and mask does. See the fine edge brush? It's got all the tree branches in there. Absolutely great tool. Makes selection dead easy. So if you don't have the sky replacement tool on your current version of Photoshop, that's how you would replace the sky. Literally just select the land, everything but the sky, pop it in a new layer and bring your sky in. So that's how to do that. Right, I will do one more small sort of tutorial on actually making a long exposure sky just from scratch. Actually just making it in Photoshop. So I will do that next and then that will be the last one, I promise. Didn't mean this to go on so long. Okay. Okay, here we are, and the last technique I'll show you for now for a long exposure sky. So to make this one, basically we're creating it from scratch in Photoshop. So the first thing to do is create a new file and fill it with a sort of mid to dark grey colour. File, new, and pick custom when you're picking the background colour and click on a dark grey, just something like shown here. Okay, so as usual, duplicate it, just a habit I've got. So I want to go in now and pick our brush tool and make sure you pick a soft round brush. Okay, and make sure it's set to white. Okay, so basically we've got white brush. So if you're using a tablet, you want to set it to the sensitivity setting, so you can go from light to dark. Right, so we've got the brush, so you can, the heavier you lay in, the lighter it goes, and etc. You'll know what I mean if you've got the tablet. So basically now we want to just draw random dots and lines on this to sort of simulate clouds. So just start drawing on it. It's kind of trial and error. Some work, some don't. Start off, just do something like that. Then into filter, blur, and motion blur. You probably get the idea of this one by now. So based on our last settings, that's the kind of what we're getting there, which is quite good, quite like that. Again, you can adjust this to get something that suits you if you want the lines going that way, depending on your image. But I think that's not too bad, quite realistic looking. For long exposure clouds, quite like that. So, okay. If you want, you can do it again. Filter, motion blur, or remember what you've done for different effects. I'm actually quite happy with the first one, quite kind of randomised. So if you want, you can copy that layer, then change blend mode in here to multiply if you want it darker. If it's too dark, you can adjust the opacity, get it just how you want it. Okay, so again, quite like that. From there, what I've done there is Shift Command E, and that's just to put it onto one layer. So if you're quite happy with that, you can drag it into like our old image here. Drag it in there and we'll see how it looks in there. Okay, so it's come in there quite small. Also my new file was a lot smaller than that one. So Command T, transform tool, and just drag it to suit. Okay, covered image. Return. So again, looks not too bad. Not too bad. What I would like to do, if I was working on this image for real, I would probably want to add a kind of vignette to that sky. It's just a bit too even and straight. It's almost too clean from the liking. So what I would do is on the sky layer, this one, click on that layer, make sure that's active, then click New. That creates a blank layer. This is how I like to create a vignette. Then pick the rectangular marquee tool, set the feather to 500, and then we'll just draw the rectangular marquee here. And basically, I'm not bothered about that bottom line. I'm concentrating on the top, the left, and the right lines. So I'll pop that about there. You can see the feather of 500 is rounded to corners. Then I'll do Shift Command I to invert that selection. Then what I'll do, it will go to the paint bucket tool, change this to black, the paint bucket tool selected, and then click in the selection here. I will then click Command D to deselect. And you can see the difference there. I think that looks much better. Far too dark, but again we can adjust the opacity. Get that wee bit of vignette just where we kind of like it. So I think that finishes it off nicely. I think that's quite a nice one. Turned out quite well. What I will say at this point, I should maybe have said earlier, I know on this video you're probably going to see quite a bit of banding when we're doing these skies. This is not actually visible in Photoshop when I'm doing it, but it does appear, it will appear in this video because of the resolution, basically. But you shouldn't really get banding if you're making these on your own, especially from scratch. You know, just make a bigger file size than I've just made there. Okay, and just for talking, if you were getting banding, a good way to get rid of banding is to add noise to the image. So if you were seeing banding on here, what you could do is go in to your filter, noise, and add noise. And generally to get rid of the banding, what you'll do is you'll add a Gaussian monochromatic, and amount wise very rarely do I go above 4 when I'm doing this. Usually about 3 will usually do the job in any image I've ever had. Yes, it does add noise, but the banding's gone and that noise won't be seen. Or if you were to print it, for example, that should completely get rid of any banding. Game 3 was probably a bit too heavy for that one because it was quite a small file size, but you know, I don't know if it'll be visible on this video, but that should have got rid of any banding. So that's a good wee tip if you do get banding on these skies. Okay, so that was one sky there. Yeah, I'll just quickly show you another way. So that was the way to make that one. New file, filled with a dark grey colour. Get a white brush, just dab on some random dots and lines. Motion blur does the job. Another way I've seen people do this, go back to the initial document here. We'll start off with a file, and what they'll do is go to filter, render, and use clouds, and it gives you this effect. Again, the bigger the file size will give you different effects, and I believe you can go in and edit these clouds to different shapes, etc. But again, you can do that, add the clouds, back up to your filter, blur, motion blur, and it'll give you that same effect again. You see the difference here, the distance makes. So that's another way to kind of get that effect. It's a bit light, so again I would duplicate that, go into multiply, darkens it up a wee bit, play with your opacity till you get what you like. And the lines are maybe a bit too straight and harsh for my liking. I'd go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'll just blur, blur that down a bit like that, maybe even a bit less. Again, get the idea. So again, for example, this guy, we'll drag it into the image just to see how it looks. Transform. You need to drag it below the layer there. Okay, so that's the new sky we've just created there. And that's it if you add that vignette back in. Again, doesn't look too bad, does it? I think I preferred the other version, but still, you see how it can be done. Okay, so I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover there. If anybody's got any questions, not sure about anything, want me to go over anything again, then, you know, just shout. Okay, so I hope that's been of some use anyway. Okay, see you in a bit.